Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryu.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryu.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts and sometimes other stuff they're involved in. My guest today has spent more than 25 years dedicated to the study, teaching, preservation, and promotion of traditional martial arts, becoming one of the leading figures in the Northern Plains martial arts community. He began his martial arts journey in 1999 under Hanchi Julio, Mutch, Usera in Rapid City, South Dakota, and while attending South Dakota State University and pursuing a degree in biology, he founded the SDSU Jujitsu Club, growing what started as a small practice group in the ROTC building into a thriving collegiate martial arts organization. After graduating, he relocated to Sioux Falls and eventually opened Dynamic Martial Arts in 2007. Today, the Academy is recognized as one of the region's premier multi-disciplinary martial arts schools, offering instruction in systems including Bujin Ki Ryu Jujitsu, Matsumura Shorin Ryu Karate, Kobudo, Iaido, Kenjutsu, Tai Chi, HEMA Longsword, self-defense, and law enforcement defensive tactics. Through his longtime instructor Julio Usera, he was introduced to the late Ken Penland and later to George Alexander Hanchi, one of the most influential figures in American Okinawan martial arts. Under Alexander Hanchi, he deepened his study of Okinawan Kobudo, Japanese sword arts, and Matsumura Shorin Ryu Karate, eventually earning Menkyo Okuden, a full instructor license in Kamigata Ryu Kenjutsu. He currently holds advanced black belt ranks across multiple systems, including Rokudan in both Bujin Ki Ryu Jujitsu and Shorin Ryu Jujitsu, along with advanced ranks in Taihu Jitsu, Matsumura Kobudo, Matsumura Shorin Ryu Karate, and Aishin Ryu Iaido. Before transitioning full-time into martial arts instruction, he worked extensively in education as a high school physics and chemistry teacher, an analytical background that continues to shape his teaching philosophy through biomechanics, pressure-tested fundamentals, and practical applications. In addition to teaching, he's also an author, media producer, and event organizer. He's the owner of Budo TV, a streaming platform dedicated to preserving and sharing traditional martial arts knowledge, as he hosts major regional events including the Sioux Falls Open Martial Arts Tournament and the Tourney of Blades, bringing together practitioners from traditional martial arts, HEMA, and weapons-based systems across the Midwest. Known for bridging traditional martial arts philosophy with modern instruction and real-world practicality, he continues to dedicate his work to building skilled martial artists while preserving the traditions and culture that shaped the arts themselves. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Joseph Herreman. How are you doing today, sir?
Not too bad. Good to be here. I appreciate you having me on, Brian.
Hey, I appreciate you. I know I say it to all my guests, but I know people's lives are busy. People have busy schedules. They have other commitments. And anytime they're willing to sit down for an hour or so and have a conversation about martial arts, I truly appreciate it. And I know my listeners do also.
Yeah, well, I know we like to follow along too and hear from all the different martial artists around the region. It's always fun to hear different people's stories, and we appreciate what you do here too.
Nice. Well, thank you. That means a lot. So, well, I know I mentioned you started in 99, but I want to know, first of all, what led to that very first martial arts experience? And was that actually your first experience? Did you get into it as a kid at all? Did you look into it? Was there like a certain event that kicked off your interest in martial arts?
So I was super into martial arts when I was in like second or third grade. I really wanted to be a Ninja Turtle.
Nice.
I watched one of my friends took me to the second Ninja Turtles movie in theaters. It was the first time I'd ever done a movie in the theaters, and I got to see Ninja Turtles 2, Return of the Ooze, or Secret of the Ooze in theaters, and that was a great time. And so I kind of became obsessed with martial arts, but I didn't find an instructor that I was happy with until high school when Hanchi Usera, his daughter, sat behind me in Spanish class. Oh. And she showed up in one of her jujitsu hoodies, and I was like, oh, yeah, I've always thought about doing that. She's like, well, get your butt down to the dojo. And then I didn't show up that night, and she chewed me out. And she's like, where were you? You were supposed to be at class. And she's like, if you don't show up tomorrow, I'm going to show up at your house and drag you down to class.
That's awesome.
I've been friends with Amber's for years. So I showed up, and then much to Hanchi's chagrin, I don't think I ever left. I was one of those guys that once I stepped on the mat, I realized I was addicted to this. And I have trained pretty much since 1999. I have trained 6 days a week. And I think the longest time I took off was my 3 months that I was not able to train when I headed up to Brookings at SDSU, South Dakota State University, and there wasn't a school there. And so then Hanchi Usera is like, hey, Joe, if you're not finding something you like, because there was just Taekwondo and it just didn't fit me. It wasn't my kind of thing. And so I'm like, Hanchi, there's nothing. He's like, well, why don't you start your own thing? So I founded a club, and next thing you know, I'm now doing it full time. I've been running martial arts for, oh, good Lord, I don't know how long now. I think it's 27 years. And I think the most I've missed of classes other than injuries and things like that was 2 or 3 months of not training every day.
Wow. Back up a little bit. You mentioned, when you saw the Ninja Turtles and you really fell in love with it and just could not find the right instructor. Do you remember some of the, maybe not instructors' names, but maybe some of the styles you checked out before you found the new system?
My thing I ran into was my mom had trained Kung Fu when she was younger. So she had done the Five Ancestors style of Kung Fu and a little bit of the Shaolin style of Kung Fu. And so she was really, really picky when it came to instructors, because my mom had experienced the good and the bad of the martial arts. She had a phenomenal instructor, but then her ex-husband had also trained in martial arts, and he took it the wrong way, and he used it in a very aggressive, controlling, abusive manner.
Dang.
And so she actually fought tooth and nail to keep me out of the martial arts for a long time, because she was worried that, something might cause me to do something like her ex-husband had done. Yeah. And so she was really, really picky, and she let me, I watched some Taekwondo demonstrations. I'd seen some karate demonstrations. There's the Shotokan Shikai dojo out of Rapid City. Okay. And so, Shutokan, not Shotokan. Oh. Shutokan Shikai dojo. It's a little different from Shotokan. It's a derivative of Shotokan. Joe Alvarez runs that program. And it's a great program, but it wasn't somebody that my mom knew and trust. And then, honestly, I had to go around her to get in the dojo. I didn't tell her I went to do the dojo my first time.
Okay.
I just showed up. And then I came home after getting to the dojo, and I'm like, Mom, I went and I tried this class. And she's like, you did what? And then she had met Hanchi Usera. She knew him through other things. And she went, okay, somehow you got lucky and you found the guy that I trust most to put you on the right path in martial arts. And so she let me stay in. But it was quite a conversation to convince her to let me do it. And that's cool. It's probably the best decision she ever made for me, because I'll be honest, if it wasn't for martial arts, I was headed down a rough path when I was, middle school, early high school. And I remember my first month or so in the dojo, Hanchi Usera sat me down and said, Joe, I'm tired of hearing stories of you fighting. I'm tired of hearing you getting in trouble at school. Here's the deal. If you don't ship up and you don't get yourself squared away and you don't stop fighting, I'm kicking you out of the program. Wow. And I never got into another fight from that day on, because I realized that it was more important that I get on the mat and that I didn't have anything to prove to others anymore. I just wanted to train. So I honestly credit Hanchi Usera for keeping me out of jail and saving my life.
Wow. Just hearing that, I'm impressed by him. I mean, that's
he's a cool. Heck of a martial artist. He's not one of those guys that's well known nationwide, but when the people that work with him and have a chance to train with him, everybody is always in awe of his skill and his dedication to the arts. He received his 10th dan under Hanchi Alexander after his first instructor, Ken Penland, passed away unexpectedly in 2007. And Hanchi Usera wasn't old enough to be a 10th Dan yet because, there's time and grade requirements and age requirements and such. And so Hanchi Alexander took it over for the Shorin Ryu Jujitsu side. And then Hanchi Usera, basically, he'd been working at it for 30, 40 years. And he is recognized by those of us in the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu community as one of the premier instructors in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu in the world. His demand for instruction when people actually know what Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is he's extremely well respected within the community. And I lucked into finding one of the best instructors I possibly could. And that's why I stuck with it. I mean, the man literally has altered my life. So.
That's cool. So then talk about at college, you started the club and stuff. Kind of, was that a difficult process? And how was it at first? Like how many people were?
It was funny because actually one of my best friends, I lived in the dorms, and the guy down the hall, got to know him through the ROTC program, and just because he was down the hall and he was a nice guy. And he's like, man, I want to learn martial arts. I want to learn martial arts. You should teach me. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to teach. I don't have permission to teach. And finally, when I was home over Christmas, Hanchi's like, yeah, well, how many people you got that want to learn? I'm like, I got like a buddy and maybe another. And he's like, oh, yeah, you can start working with them. That's fine. Go work with them. Okay. And so we started just having fun in the ROTC building. And then we got permission to turn it into an official club through the college. And it took some paperwork. Honestly, that's all it was. And, a couple of meetings. I think we were charging $10 a semester to be a member of the club. And that's just to get people to actually commit a little something to put a little skin in the game as a college student. And we started out it was just Isaac. And then we threw a couple flyers around campus. And then we ended up with 3 or 4 other people. And then got to know the guys in the boxing club, and a couple of guys from the boxing club came and started working with us, and actually ended up roommating. My roommate, my junior and senior year, was the president of the SDSU boxing club, and I was president of the Jiu-Jitsu club. And so we were kind of running the 2 martial arts programs on campus together. And that's cool. Then one of the professors at SDSU at the time, he was a psychology professor. He found us through our flyers, and he was a black belt in Daito Ryu Jujitsu. So he kind of came on as our advisor and trained under me and helped us develop. And I think at our peak, we had probably 30 people training with us, 20 or 30 people. It never got super big over there, but for a college program that's just being run as a club and nobody's getting paid and everybody's just having fun training in the wrestling room, it was great. And it was just what I needed to learn how to be an instructor. Because there's a lot that goes into running your own school that, at 19 years old and, wide-eyed and, clueless going, oh, I could totally do this. Sure, Hachi, I'll run a program. Yeah, I was an idiot. I made so many mistakes with that early program. But the nice thing is through the college, because it was a club, they covered the insurance. They gave me a stipend for putting up flyers around campus. They gave me a venue to advertise. So it made it easier to recruit people at first. And it was college kids who, young, athletic, and they don't expect you to be perfect. You can make mistakes and you can learn and grow. And then by the time I graduated, I had 5 students that had made it up into like the purple belt, brown belt rank. So like Goku, Yankyu levels. And they stuck with it. And then when I moved down to South Dakota, down to Sioux Falls for my first job, I was an educator at the Great Plains Zoo, teaching kids all about animals and stuff because I have a biology degree. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And yeah, it was a ton of fun. You get to work with the rhinoceros and work with the giraffes and all that kind of stuff. And
That's
then
awesome.
I was like, okay, well, I'm tired of driving to Brookings, guys. I'm sorry. And they're like, well, hey, guess what? We're graduating in a month. Can you put up with it for a month? And when we graduate, 2 of us have jobs down there. The other one's like, I'm headed to Utah. So, whatever. And so I was like, all right, I'll put up with it for 1 more month. And then I found a little private 24-hour gym that had a small cardio room, and I talked to the owner and I'm like, hey man, would you be willing to let me teach out of your space? And he's like, oh yeah, we'll do it real cheap. And so I had a couple of brown belts that followed me down, and then they started helping me teach and stuff. But really it was the idea of opening your own school. For those of you that are listening that are thinking, hey, I can totally do this, first off, I want to say, yes, you can, but
it's a lot of work.
One, get a freaking mentor that's going to help you. Make sure your instructor is there to answer questions, help you. to get a good lawyer to build your freaking waivers, to get your legal stuff, get your good insurance, all that kind of stuff. And 3, be willing to make a lot of mistakes and know that you're not going to get very big very quick. It took me 25 years to build what I have. And it takes a lot of patience, but it's worth everything. And then I kept doing it for a while, taught high school along the way. And eventually I was doing so much with the dojo. The dojo had gotten so big, my wife just said to me, you know what, Joe? Dude, you got to pick. You are burning the candle at both ends. You're not sleeping. You're working too hard. How many students do you need to do this full time? And so she made me sit down and do the math. God bless her soul. That woman has put up with so much crap with me over the years. And she's like, do the math. So I did the math. And to replace my teaching salary, I had to add 5 students.
Wow.
So I said, all right, COVID's here. There's nothing else going on. I don't have a space to train. We're going to open our own space, and I'm going to try this thing full time. And luckily, I hung out my shingle. I added those 5 students. And then, I actually added 30 students within 2 months of going full time, and it's just been a wild ride ever since.
That's cool. So
yeah,
back to that freshman year of college. Before that, had teaching ever entered your mind? Was that something you ever thought of possibly doing in martial arts, or was it your buddy saying "teach me" that kind of made it think maybe?
It was. So in Bujin Ki Ryu Jujitsu, we require everybody that is the Gokyu and higher need to help teach classes. So there's a lot of benefits to teaching.
Okay.
One of them being if you're teaching it to someone else, you have to stop and think through all the little details of how to do the technique. So every one of our students is blue belt and higher. To actually advance beyond the brown belt has to help teach kids classes, adults classes, and all that.
Nice.
So I kind of had some experience from my regular classes teaching. And because I was one of those crazy guys that was at the dojo all the freaking time, I probably had more teaching experience than a lot of people within the program, just because I wanted to be there. And so I just went, okay, well, if I want to be here, I'll help teach. And then when I was in high school, I had a bone disease called osteochondritis dissecans, caused the end of my femur to die. Just a real small spot, but it tears up your knee and it sucks and it's really nasty. And so I had to go through some rehab for it. I got stuck in a straight leg brace for about 12 weeks, 6 weeks the first time, 8 weeks the second time. And then I had to have a knee surgery when I was my junior year in high school. So me being the crazy kid that I am, I'm like, well, I still want to be at the mat. Well, Hanchi's going, well, you can't exactly be doing jujitsu when you can't bend your knee or putting weight on your foot or things. Okay, go teach the white belts. So I spent a lot of time teaching, and it was really cool for me because he had me work a lot with them, and I discovered that, one, that I was actually a pretty darn good teacher. People actually learned a lot from me, and they enjoyed working with me. And 2, that teaching really refined my basics. And the basics, the keyhone in karate and jujitsu and anything is the fundamentals. You can know the fanciest flying armbar, double backflip crap in the world, but if you can't, punch a guy in the nose, what good is it?
Yeah.
So that really refined my teaching a lot. And so I had a lot of experience before I headed to SDSU in teaching, just because that's what we do. And we have a program that we run through all of our schools. We call it our Black Belt Club. Basically, it's all of our senior students, brown belts and higher, that we see potential of becoming a black belt, where we sit down and we teach them how to run a dojo. Our program has a built-in, here's how to do a warm-up properly. Here's how to work with a kid with ADHD. Here's how to set up a lesson plan for a dojo. Here's some of the business side stuff that nobody thinks of as you're doing this stuff. And we teach that to our students because we believe that you have to, if you want the style to survive, you got to plan for the future. And one of the easiest ways to plan for the future is set your students up to be successful when you pass, so that there's somebody to carry on your legacy.
Nice. You talked about how, they have that where they teach you how to run a school. They teach. So thinking back to when you first started helping teach white belts all the way to now, you've been running your own school for this many years and now doing it full time. What do you think has changed the most about your teaching style over those last 25 years?
One of my biggest things is I'm a lot more patient with mistakes and with the silliness that comes with little kids. Teaching kids, some of us try to get way too, we're trying to be, you got to pay attention. You got to be on par. You got to do everything right. You know what? If they're 5 years old and you can get them to stand on one foot for 30 seconds, you did a great job that day.
Yeah.
I know a lot of 5-year-olds who cannot stand on one foot for a day. The other thing I quit doing that I think has been really beneficial for my students is I quit worrying about how quickly they progress. I got one little girl, she started with me 3 years ago, and she's still a white belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I got another one that's been with me for 3 months that's the same age, and she just tested for a yellow belt. I quit trying to worry about keeping everybody on par, keeping where everybody worried, progressing. And now I just look at it as more of, you're going to find 5 students that are just phenomenal. You're going to find 5 kids that just, they really physically have no clue what they're doing, but they're willing to work. And then you got all the others in between. And learning how to balance that has been the biggest thing for me that's really improved in my teaching.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that I've done that I think has really been a big benefit to me more than anything is I've studied a lot of other styles besides just my Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
The Bujin Ki Ryu is it's a super complete system, but I've started to pull in stuff from outside our system. The Shorin Ryu Karate, the Kobudo that I do, the Eshin Ryu Iaido, the Kamigata Ryu Kenjutsu. It all builds together, and it's helped grow my understanding of the martial arts, which makes it easier for me to pass on other knowledge.
Nice.
And then I've gotten a lot better at my Japanese, which has been good because I suck at Japanese.
Okay.
So.
Curious, the comment you made about the student who's been with you 3 years, still a white belt. Now, I love the fact that doesn't bother you, but is that something where you, like a parent, maybe, why isn't my kid? I mean, do you deal with the difficult parents, or is this, you've been pretty lucky?
It can be a problem. I've had it in the past where it's been a problem. I've had some parents like, my kid's not progressing. And my answer to that has always been, well, what are you doing at home? What are you doing to encourage them to practice? How often are you coming? That kind of stuff.
Okay.
That one kid that she's been a white belt for almost 3 years now. I see her, once a week on a good month.
Oh, okay.
Of course she's going to be stuck at her rank for a while.
Yeah.
It comes down to dedication. And then those kids, I also, I spend, the other one that I'm not afraid to do anymore, and I think this is the biggest lesson that I've learned in teaching, is I'm not afraid to go to a kid and say, hey, do you want to be here? Do you want to train? Not does mom want you to train, but do you want to be here?
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to be here, man, then I will talk to mom for you, and I'll cancel your membership for you, and I'll make sure that mom finds you a new activity. But if you want to keep coming, then cool. I'll make sure that you get to keep coming. And that little girl, she, God bless her soul, she, every time I see her, yeah, I want to be here. I want to be here. Okay, cool. How are we going to get you better? And the big answer, actually, she came to me the other day, and she's like, Sensei, can you talk to mom about getting me to class more often? Because I feel like that's
Nice.
My problem. I was like,
Wow.
dude, you're like 9 years old, and you realize that? That's incredible.
That's impressive.
So, yeah. So I sat down with her mom here about 2 weeks ago, and I had that conversation, and now I'm seeing her two or three times a week. I'm seeing her
Very
practice
cool.
more. And honestly, she's going to test for a yellow belt soon.
I'd be willing to bet if I talk to you in like 5 or 6 years, she's probably getting ready for her black belt. It sounds like she's dedicated.
Probably.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
something triggered in that kid a while back, and I've seen a big change in her. And I think that's the most fun is when you see a kid go from I don't care why am I here to no, this is what I want to do. I've been blessed to see that a lot, and then I've got to watch my own son do that. My son's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and he studies several other martial arts underneath me. And there was a while there where it was pulling teeth to get him on the mat. And these days it's like, Dad, can we go to the dojo? I want to be there. I'm like, dude, you got school and marching band and work, but okay, you're turning into me. Let's go.
That's awesome.
It's pretty sweet.
So do you find it difficult as a parent to be an instructor to your own kid? Was that hard at first?
Honestly, no,
Oh,
but that's
okay.
probably because I try not to make decisions about my own kids.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to teach them, and they learn from me just fine. I got 2 kids that train with me. But when it comes time for promotions and stuff like that, I go to my other black belts and I say, hey, is my son ready? Am I crazy or is he ready? I let them make the decisions.
That's cool.
Yeah. Actually, every one of my black belts, every black belt that trains with me, their kid also trains with me.
Okay.
And we made a decision collectively that none of us would make decisions for rank promotion for our own children, that we would always go to each other and say, hey, what do you think? Should we promote them? Should we not promote them? It helps keep it more fair, helps prevent the appearance of favoritism, and also it takes some of the pressure off of being your own kid's instructor.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You mentioned your other black belts. So do you remember who was your first student that you personally brought from white all the way to black?
Ben Benson, he's still with me. He's
Okay.
actually a 4th Dan in my system, and he still has been with me. He's been with me for coming up on almost 20 years now.
So did he start in the college program with you, or did he start at your...
Yes.
Nice.
Yep, he was one of my early college kids. I I had been training for about 1.5 years when he started training with me. Him and his buddy came in, and I'll tell you what, when those two walked on the mat, it was a little intimidating because Ben is the smaller of the two, and he is 6'4", and last time we weighed him, it was 440, 450, something like that.
Damn.
And there's no fat on him. He's just that big.
Wow.
He makes NFL linebackers look small.
Jeez.
He is massive. And the other guy that came in with him was just as big, maybe bigger than him. And I'm going, I got to fight these guys and make them go, hey, I'm a black belt and I can teach you something legit. And I tell you what, man, you want to get good at technique. You want to find out if what you're doing is working. Go grab a big guy. You can't make it work on a big guy. It don't work. And man, those guys, I learned more about wrist locks and force manipulation working with those two than anybody. And then Ben is probably one of the most intelligent people I've met in my life. He's so analytical and super intelligent. He's a scientist and an educator himself. And he has done a lot to help me grow as a martial artist and as a human being. He's a good friend these days, and he's gone help me in so many different ways. And heck, he lives like 3 blocks from me now. I mean, we get together occasionally just for the heck of it. Just like, hey, we're just down the street. Come on over. Let's grab a beer. It's really kind of fun.
That's cool.
But his wife trained with us too, and she came in when we moved to Sioux Falls. He had been dating her, and she started training with us, and she made it up to purple belt, and then got pregnant. And she's like, I gotta get back on the mat. I still hear that from her occasionally. And yeah, it's pretty cool. The dedication I have from my black belts. Honestly, it's a community that we've built. These guys they're more than just my students and my instructors. They're some of my best friends in the world. As I always say, martial arts is one of those cool communities because you can punch your best friend in the face, laugh about it, and then go back about your day and go grab a beer together. And where else can you smack somebody and knock them out and they get up and go, dude, that was cool, and you have a lot of fun with it.
It's funny you mentioned that because in my traditional Taekwondo class, talking about a big train, I've had 3 really big training partners over the years, and one of my good friends, Brad, I had been out of class for a while. I can't remember what it was, like a birth of a child or something, but I'd been gone for a while, and I came back to class that night, and he's like, "Oh, we're doing body punching, get a partner." I'm like, "All right, I got to go with Brad." And we're going light, and he's like, "Mr. Bryan," I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "Welcome back," and he just boom. Right in the gut. I dropped to my knees. I'm like, "Thank you, sir." It's like, man, I miss that.
Yeah, it's funny too how many of my students that have walked away from the dojo and they come back on the mat and they're like, "God, I miss this." And I'd pick them up and I'll throw them a big hard throw where they'll take a hard hit and they're like, "Oh my God, I miss this. I got to do this more." Or I'll tap them out and choke the crap out of them. They're like, "Oh, I miss getting choked. It's so good to be back."
Yep. I get it all the time. So you kind of mentioned, I know you run some events and stuff, but now you yourself, when did you get into the competition side of martial arts?
Oh God. My first competition, I was 2.5 months into training.
Okay.
I had received my yellow belt the week before.
Okay.
And Hanchi Usera was hosting a tournament and he's like, "Hey, anybody want to compete?" I'm like, sure, why not? I'll go try it. I learned a couple of kata. Japanese jiu-jitsu doesn't have any katas, doesn't have any forms, but it's one of the old school style tournaments that I still host. It's an open forum tournament. So there's forms, there's sparring, there was grappling. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go do it all. And I had been wrestling for about 1 year at that point. So I stepped into the grappling ring. I got my butt kicked in grappling, had a great time. I competed in forms. I screwed those forms up so bad, man. I don't know what I was thinking, but it was awesome. And then I competed in sparring. I won my first match. I got disqualified for hitting too hard in my second one. Ended up taking second overall in a couple of things. And I came within like 3 or 4 points as a yellow belt of winning a grand championship because I went, hey, I'll try everything, whatever it was. And next thing I know, I'm like, this is kind of fun. And so I have competed consistently throughout my entire career. I fought at lots of different levels, mostly local events, but I fought in some of the higher level stuff, because of my life and my business and my, military and the teaching and everything. I never got to get into like professional fighting, but I've coached some guys that have fought at the higher levels, and competition is just a big part of what we do, but also being traditional martial artists. we look more for not the MMA side, but more the traditional style events. Not to say that Bujin Ki Ryu is not a good MMA system.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the earliest UFC fighters under contract in South Dakota came out of our dojo in Rapid City.
Nice.
My instructor out there, Josh Usera, Hanchi Usera's son, he had guys like Clint Godfrey, Johnny Knudsen, some of the early UFC pioneers of South Dakota were coming out of our dojo, and our system worked great for it. And I seriously considered it, but at that point, I had to balance career with professional fighting. So I fight a lot of local tournaments, and I still host a lot of those. It's a lot of fun, but really, competition is kind of. It's an important part, but it's not the heart and soul of what I do anymore. Yeah. But I still believe that everybody should compete. It's a good way to keep kids active on the mat. It gives them a goal to shoot for. And I always tell my students, the student that I have that competes is always going to be a better martial artist than the kid who doesn't. Not because, they're going to get promoted sooner for winning or anything like that, but because they have something to strive for. They have something to push them to be better. And they have a way to test their skills, to find out where the holes in their training are. Because I'll tell you what, the first time I stepped into a BJJ match, I got my butt kicked. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been grappling for years. What the heck just happened here? And it was eye-opening to me to see that there was holes in my game. So I've worked pretty hard to try to fill those gaps. It was very good for me. Sparring, I fought semi-contact, I fought full contact, I fought point fighting, and every one of those matches teaches you a little bit something and helps you find the holes in your game and turns into something better.
Nice. And you mentioned obviously like hosting events and stuff. What was the first time you hosted like a tournament, and kind of what was that experience like, your first time doing it?
Oh man, so I hosted my first tournament 17 years ago.
Okay.
And it was the Sioux Falls Open Martial Arts Tournament. Our first tournament had 45 competitors, and it was great. We had a gi grappling division. We had traditional forms, freestyle forms, weapons forms, and point fighting. And all I can say is God bless the people who came to that event and put up with my stupidity, because, it went okay, but it definitely wasn't phenomenal. And we grow and we learn every year from it. But those early tournaments, man, it was a lot of people that were there for the love of the game, not because that it was a great run tournament. These days, we host probably the largest tournament in the state that's open to everybody. You go to a lot of tournaments, it's like, well, you got to be Taekwondo, or you got to be karate, or you got to be our association, or you got to be this style. Our event that we host these days is open to everybody. We don't care what style you are. We don't care what school you're with. We don't care if you're even tied to a school anymore. As long as you're willing to fight under our rules, which we know that they're different from what a lot of people are used to. Our grappling rules, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world sometimes goes, oh, we don't like your rules because we allow wrist locks at every level. We allow calf raisers. We allow heel hooks. We allow some of those techniques that have been banned in other tournaments over the years. Because, we're old school Japanese jiu-jitsu. I remember my first grappling tournament. If you got a grip on them, you could use that hand that had a hold of the gi to punch them in the face with. It was completely illegal. You were allowed to kick to the legs. And this was grappling. Yeah, that's the 1990s grappling rules. That's the old Japanese jiu-jitsu rules.
Nice.
So it was really fun. You get a grip on them and you'd freaking start wailing them in the chest with that grip. And then you do a really big, I'd catch a kataguruma or something like that, or a big ogoshi after, punch a guy in the chin with your hand that's on your on their gi, and then throw a hip throw on them and then land right on top of them. And that was the way I grew up. So it was a rough and tumble way of fighting back in the 90s. And
yeah.
I remember the very first tournament I saw, there was no gear allowed. So the gear the black belts were allowed was a single piece of tape, a groin protection, and a mouth guard. That's it. The very first match, the black belts fought first, and they step out, two guys square up, and I see a strike, and I see a guy stumble back, and you see his turn his head to the side, kind of spit off to the side, and you see a piece of his tooth go flying across the mat, and he steps back into the ring. That's what I remember. So my tournaments still try to maintain that old school spirit without the injury. So we've got rules that are a little bit more, they're a little bit more the old school jiu-jitsu. We don't allow the striking anymore because we don't need that. We took away choking in the kids divisions here about 15 years ago. There's been some really interesting research on that. I was reading a scientific paper that came out. I don't remember which journal. I want to say it was the New England Journal of Medicine or one of those. about kids getting choked. And apparently a child that is choked for 15 seconds, so cutting off air to their brain for 15 seconds, receives the same amount of trauma to their brain as getting a massive concussion.
Wow.
And it can literally alter their brain development and the way that they mature, and it can cause them to grow into a more aggressive personality.
Mm-hmm.
It basically causes a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, much of the same thing in a developing adolescent mind. So we took away choking in the kids divisions because of that. Because the last thing in the world you want to do is alter a child's personality and turn them into a more aggressive kid. That's not healthy. So sometimes we take a little crap from the BJJ world because we don't allow submissions in the kids divisions. We only allow them to put the position on, and then they get called. We don't allow choking. We give them points for it. We send them back to their feet. We make them start over again because we're more focused on the technique and less focused on the win for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But then, with that becomes, by the time they hit the teens and adults divisions, they've developed a lot more control. So we're able to allow the wrist locks from white and yellow belts. We're able to allow the rear naked chokes. We're able to allow the calf raisers because people are putting them on in a way that they're not trying to kill their opponent. They're putting them on, holding it, giving the guy a chance to tap. I've been doing tournaments now for, I think it was 16 or 17 years. And knock on wood, the worst injury we've had was a mild concussion from a punch in our sport jiu-jitsu division.
Wow.
Or the other one we had, I think we had a broken finger and a mild dislocation of a shoulder one time, and that's it. So I've had my biggest tournament, we had 275 competitors, and that year the worst injury we had was a sprained wrist.
Okay.
So we must be doing it right. So it's different.
Is that in April every year, that tournament?
Yep. The Sioux Falls Open is the last weekend in April every year.
Okay.
Like I said, it's open to everybody who wants to come play. We've had some really cool competition over the years. We've had everything from Kapawara to Taekwondo to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Kung Fu to Kempo, Shotokan Karate, Shudokan Karate. It's an open tournament, and the rules are designed to not favor any particular style.
Mm-hmm.
We try really hard to make sure, our point fighting rules, it's 1 point for everything.
Okay.
Doesn't matter where you hit them. Doesn't matter if you do something fancy. Just matters that you hit them. You get a point for it.
Okay.
It has to hit above the belt. Our grappling rules are super, super simple because we don't need anything fancy. We just want to show that you have control, get your position, and you move on. We don't give points for guard because we don't believe guard is a position that you want to stay in for very long because as a self-defense school, if you put me in guard, I'm going to sit back and into Seiza, I'm going to punch you in the nuts. We call it monkey punching, when you just kind of pound on their groin.
Yep.
Because, if you're not wearing a cup and you're pulling guard in the street, cool, but you got to be able to really control that. So we don't give points for it, but then we don't give you points for passing. But our rules are really simple. And then we have our sport jiu-jitsu division that a lot of people really love because it takes the standard point fighting that you'd see in a PKC or a WKF or something like that, and it blends it with our grappling rules. So basically it's striking while you're standing, and then if somebody gets a grip, it becomes a standard grappling match. But if you get tapped, then you actually get a second chance at the sparring because we don't want to favor the grapplers over the sparrers when you can't strike. So it's really cool. It's something different. Some people jokingly call it MMA for the guy who has to go to work tomorrow. It's a chance to play both, but we try not to use that because we don't want the South Dakota Gaming Commission to think we're doing MMA.
Yeah.
They would not appreciate that. But it's a good way for a guy that's going, hey, do I actually want to step into the MMA world, to find out if it's something they even want to pursue. It's a good starter division for that.
That's cool. I know I've wanted to come down and watch the last 2 years, and I've had to work every weekend. So I'm hoping next year.
Yeah, we always get a good crew that comes down from Fargo. The Bad Ace Martial Arts comes down from there.
Yeah, from Moorhead. Yeah, the Shoshu school.
Bunch of people. Yeah, and
yep.
I'll tell you what, those Shoshu guys, they are good. They run some really good katas, and they're getting pretty good at their grappling. They're a lot of fun to roll with.
Alexis was one of my guests a couple years ago. Alexis Potter from that school, and I think she's one of my most listened to episodes. And she's like, no one will want to hear me, and I'm like, I guarantee people want to hear it. And yeah, it's one of my most popular episodes. People love her episodes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's
yeah.
cool.
Alexis is a phenomenal martial artist, and she's such a good human being.
She is.
I always enjoy working with her. So yeah, it's a lot of fun when she comes down.
They come to our instructor. My instructor does the Fargo Open. That's what he's been doing for 26 years, and that's where I met her. They came and competed at his tournament.
When is that Fargo Open?
That's usually in October every year, like
October. Okay.
third or last weekend in October, I believe.
Yeah, we've been meaning to come up to that one.
That would be cool.
It falls really close to our Gayasiku, our big annual training we do over Columbus Day weekend. So sometimes it's hard to get people up there, but one of these days we're going to get it up there.
When I get the date, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. We would love to come up and check it out.
Nice. So. And then what about Tourney Blades? Kind of where did that idea come from, and how long's that been going on?
Oh my God! So this is our second year of the Tourney Blades.
Okay.
Yep. So basically, when I started Dynamic Martial Arts as a full-time job, I brought on the Sioux Falls Sword Academy as a partnership. So Jesse Adams owns the Sioux Falls Sword Academy, and he comes in and teaches sword stuff in my dojo twice a week. So he teaches Kendo and Kumdo, which is like, Kumdo is the Korean version of Kendo.
Yep, we do that.
And then he also does Olympic fencing. And so we were having a lot of fun with that for a long time. So we've got epee, we've got foil at our dojo. And then about 2 years ago, I was at the Siouxland Renaissance Festival, and I ran into a gentleman there by the name of Bill Casper, who's teaching German longsword, of all things.
Wow.
And he was, giving everybody introductory classes. And so he and I chatted for a while, and he's like, yeah, we've been trying to find a place to do this. And, the HEMA thing is starting to take off a little bit. And I'm like, all right, well, if you're willing to teach on a weekend, he's like, wait, you have a weekend that you're willing to do it? That's the only weekend the time I can do it. So if you're willing to do a weekend, I would totally come in. So Bill came in about coming up on 2 years ago now to my school, and he started teaching German longsword. And now we've added sword and buckler and some of the other traditional European weapons arts into our program. And so once we've been doing that for a while, the guys are like, well, we want to compete. So we started looking around, and there's a really nice tournament in Minneapolis called Icebreaker for HEMA that they had gone to and they had a lot of fun at. And then there's a couple down in Omaha. So, the nearest tournament was 3 or 4 hours away for a lot of us. And the Kendo guys were going, well, we'd really like to do a tournament, because doing a tournament for Kendo, the next closest tournament is Minneapolis on a good day. But most of the time they end up all the way down in Texas to compete, or in Colorado. I mean, that's, 6, 10, 12, 15 hours to compete. So basically, Jesse and I said, well, why don't we host a small learning type tournament at Sioux Falls? And so we did it last year for the first time. And I think we ended up with like 50 competitors. And what we do is we have HEMA divisions. We did German longsword. We did a sword and buckler division. We did epee, and we did Kendo last year. And then this year we added a division for foil, Olympic foil. Mm-hmm. And then we also added what we are calling our open HEMA division, which basically we're only allowing synthetic weapons for that division, which some of the HEMA guys really don't like, but my insurance sure prefers the synthetic weapons over the steel. Yeah. And so it's an open division. So any synthetic traditional historical weapon against any synthetic historical weapon, as long as it's not a pole arm, you can use it. So we got one guys has started playing with, he's got an arm shield, like an old Cusack arm shield and an arming sword. One of the other guys has been trying to find a synthetic Viking axe that he can get away with. We got a couple guys that are trying. One of them's actually found a synthetic side sword that he's going to try to pair with a parrying dagger. And we're just going to let them have a little bit of fun and see how that all plays out. And it could be a great division. It could be awful. And it's really just about having fun and hitting each other with swords.
That's really cool. I just put it on my reminder calendar for it's July 11th, right?
Yeah, July 11th at Augustana University. The university's been Bill actually works there, and they were kind enough to donate a room for us for the event this year. So last year we did it at our dojo, and it was really hard for spectators because it's not a big space.
Yeah.
So this year, being at the Augustana College, we'll be able to run 2 or 3 rings, and we'll have plenty of room for spectators to come down and watch and participate.
That's perfect timing, because your episode comes out July 9th. So.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So 2 days before, then you can come on down and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. we've got about 40 people signed up as of today. It's early June, and so we expect probably 15 or 20 more.
Okay.
And it's about the edged weapons community getting together, because the edged weapons community is very fractured right now. You've got the kendo guys and the kumdo guys who there's the same art, but don't tell the Koreans that. They don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
I know.
and then you got the Olympic fencers over in their own little world. You got the HEMA guys in their own little world. And there's not really anything that cross-pollinates. And I guess that's always been my thing with competition, is I'm a guy who believes very strongly that the whole point of a tournament, the number one thing about hosting a tournament or competing in a tournament, is to step outside of your wheelhouse, step outside of your dojo, and meet other people with a common interest and learn from them.
Definitely.
We go out to some of these events, and I've been to Taekwondo tournaments that will let me come play, and we have a great time. Sure. Do I win? Sometimes. Do I have a good time? Yeah. Do I meet people with different ideas on martial arts? Heck yeah. I go to judo tournaments. I go to Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournaments. I go to karate tournaments. I go to HEMA tournaments. I go to kendo tournaments. And I encourage my students to do the same. So the whole goal here is to get people to step out of their comfort zone and meet other people with a similar interest and learn something from them. Because I'll tell you what, having in my dojo, I think it's 9 or 10 different martial arts. You see, we got jiu-jitsu, karate, Kobudo, Kenjutsu, kendo, epee, foil, HEMA, Tai Chi. So 9 different martial arts in my school. What we've discovered is with all these different instructors is we all have a lot of commonality, and we also have our own opinions on things, but we're surprising each other a lot on how much the stuff that's the same but different, and we're learning from each other and finding different things. And it's funny because I look back through history. So I just finished writing a book on the history of Kobudo, Okinawan weapon systems. Well, I should say I finished my portion of it. Hanchi George Alexander from the ISKKF is working on his portion of it. We're going to combine it together to become a manual from that. And a big part of my job was to research the history of Okinawan Kobudo. And it was really cool because if you know anything about Okinawa is it's a trading town, island chain, whatever. Technically it was its old kingdom at the time. But they were dominated by China for almost 40 years. Almost 400 years. They were a vassal state for China. And then for a while, they were a vassal state for Japan as well. So they were actually, China and Japan was both ruling them for a while. Yeah. And they were having to pay money to both of them. And eventually, these days they are actually part of Japan. But because of that, they became kind of this epicenter for martial artists coming together. So if you go to Okinawa and you look at their Kobudo, you're going to see influences from Kung Fu, karate, the Okinawan system, which is actually Tay at the time. But the Okinawan weapon systems, the Chinese weapon systems, the Japanese weapon systems, the Filipino weapon systems, the Indonesian weapon systems, because everybody traded with Okinawa.
Yeah.
And so they always would exchange ideas, and some of these masters would go study with all these other people because they wanted to learn from them. And if you look at the history of karate, like Matsumura himself, he spent time living in Japan, he spent time living in China, he studied with anybody and everybody who was willing to share. And that's what made him such a phenomenal martial artist and such a renowned instructor, and founded karate, which now, if you look at karate, if it wasn't for people willing to do that, you wouldn't have Taekwondo, you wouldn't have Shotokan, you wouldn't have all the different karate styles, you wouldn't even have a lot of the Japanese martial arts as what they are today without it.
Yeah.
So I believe the more we can bring the community together, that from different walks of the same kind of tree, I guess, the more we can learn from each other and the better we all get. We grow as martial artists together when we meet other people and we learn from others and we get to know people. That's part of the reason I agreed to come on your podcast, is because you do such a good job of helping people find other martial artists with similar mentalities.
And the whole reason is because other people like you keep saying yes.
Yeah,
right? It works together. So I like it. Nice. Now, you mentioned the book you're working on. First of all, when does that come out? And is that the first one you've worked on?
Yeah, so this is the first book I've ever written in martial arts. I do not have a time frame for it yet, because Hanchi Alexander, he's like me, he's doing 1,001 things. So he's probably not going to have his portion of it done for a couple of months. He's hopefully he'll get his portion of it knocked out. We're shooting for a tentative release date of sometime this fall. otherwise early next year. It's meant to be both a historical book, but also a training manual for the ISKKF Kobudo, because we haven't had a really clean Kobudo only manual. Hanchi Alexander did a wonderful job writing a book on karate, and actually he's one of the premier martial arts historians for Okinawan martial arts. He's the first guy ever to translate the Bubishi into English. He wrote Okinawa Island of Karate, tracing the lineages of all the main karate systems that are in Okinawa in English. He's written like 40 some odd books on martial arts, and following his footsteps is kind of what led me to where I'm at. And so the book hopefully will come out, but we needed something to clean up purely for the Kobudo. And so I kind of started working on it. And it started out with me just kind of putting together something for my students to try to clean up our curriculum and make it a little bit more, give them a little bit more background to where everything is. And next thing I know, I'm like, I've written over 200 pages. How the hell did that happen? So
that's cool.
And then I started doing the same thing for our HEMA program, started out working on a manual, and I'm almost 3/4 of the way of writing another book about the same length on HEMA that I should have done hopefully by the end of the year as well. And they're more instructional than they are historical, but they're going to be good for our students.
When they're done, send me the links and I'll add it to your episode.
Yeah, I will do so. And we're not sure exactly how we're going to publish them yet. I know at least the Kobudo manual is going to be published by Yamazato Books. Yamazato Productions is the company that Hanchi Alexander runs that produces a lot of books. And he also used to produce a whole lot of DVDs. He kind of stepped away from the DVD world and actually turned it over to me, and that's how I started Budo TV. I actually acquired a large portion of Hanchi Alexander's library, basically to make a video streaming service similar to Netflix for martial artists to learn from. So we've got Budo TV, that all these books that we're writing are tied back into that as well, to kind of give people both a visual reference and a written reference to go with what they're doing.
And how's that been? That was my next question. So how's Budo TV been going for you? Is it people enjoying it?
Yeah, the feedback on it's been pretty good. It's still in its infancy. We're actually, I was just talking to our programmer today, who's actually one of my jiu-jitsu students today, too. We're doing some major updates to the website here over the next couple of weeks, but it's got about 250 titles on it right now. I just finished shooting a new video with Hanchi Alexander, should be ready for publication here next week on Kamigata Ryu Kenjutsu. We'll do our first of a 3-part series on that will be published here next week on there. It's got big section on Matsumura Shorin Ryu Karate. It's got a bunch of historical documents on there. There's a bunch of jiu-jitsu on there. There's a great series from my instructor, Josh Usera, on MMA on there. Some of the old MMA stuff and some of the ways that some of the techniques he used to teach his fighters when they were going into the UFC. There's a whole big section on Kobudo. There's another section, we got video from Dana Abbott, one of the premier kendo guys in the world.
Yep.
It's growing. It's not well known yet, but the word's starting to spread within the martial arts community. And we're trying to meet with some other instructors. So if you guys know anybody that is like, hey, I've got these old DVDs sitting around, I don't know what to do with them, that owns the publication rights to it, we would love to get more titles on there, because there's a lot of old, really good instruction martial arts videos that are getting lost as the DVD era kind of dies.
Yeah.
And really, I built Budo TV to preserve those and prevent them from disappearing, because YouTube's great, the Instagram stuff is great, and a lot of people are still producing really good short films. But some of those longer format DVDs and videos that really dig into the details of the arts are being lost as the instructors pass. And some of those videos were produced back in the 70s and 80s by instructors that were in their 60s at the time. And those videos are disappearing. So we're trying to collect as many of those as we can to try to preserve them and make them available to the public. And, we try real hard to keep the cost down. Yeah. It's $8 a month, $7.99 a month to access it. It's really not bad. It's less than your Netflix. And you can go watch, the latest thing from Disney and go say, oh yeah, I watched The Mandalorian, cool, or you can go on ours for half that price and learn some martial arts. And these are some of the best martial arts instructional videos in the world. Some of this stuff, I when I was in Okinawa here this last year, I was talking to some people about what I've been building. They're like, oh my God, you have that video? Man, I remember when that first came out. I still reference that video. I can't find my old copy. I'm going to go on there. So the word's starting to spread within the martial arts community, and hopefully it'll grow into something even bigger.
I definitely have some people
honestly,
I can put you in touch with. So
yeah, that'd be great.
I literally just interviewed a few weeks ago Miguel Ibarra, who did a whole series for Panther Productions back in the day.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to get a hold of the guys at Panther themselves. I want to buy out their whole collection if I could. That'd be phenomenal.
I think it got, I want to say Century is the ones who bought it. I think Century owns the rights.
Century owns a big portion of it, but not all of it. I found that out. And Century's just sitting on it. And I think that's what bothers me right now. Century Martial Arts and AWMA both own the publication rights for a huge library, and they're both just sitting on them. And it's like, guys, people still want this stuff.
Yeah.
Can we find a way to publish it? And so
the CEO of Century is a former guest, so I can probably reach out to him for you maybe.
Hey, man, I wouldn't even be against, maybe he and I can work out a deal where Budo TV and Century partner up and become something. He doesn't have to start from scratch to build it. We'd be more than happy to partner with somebody who has a big library. It'd be great.
As we're talking about these, I'm adding the links for all your tournaments and your Budo TV to my notes, so I remember to add them to your episode.
Yeah, that's always good,
Definitely. So over your martial arts career, is there one philosophy that's at the top of your list, super important to you?
My biggest philosophy is how do I explain it? I have this idea that nobody should ever be too good to continue to learn. I have been blessed with some of the top instructors in the world, and I get lucky in my meetings. I have had the chance to train with Akimine Sensei, the head of the Shinbukan out of Okinawa, multiple times. One of his senior instructors, met him through a tournament, Tim Jurgens. He lives in Lonsdale, Minnesota. Phenomenal martial artist. I've worked with Hanchi Alexander. I worked with Hanchi Usera. I had a chance to work with Ken Penland. I had a chance to sit down with Bill Wallace and do a seminar with him.
Nice.
He was a ton of fun to train with. I've had a chance to train with some of the biggest names and some of the smallest names in the martial arts. But the thing I've discovered over the years is every single person has something to teach you, even if it's just patience. So I try real hard to always be open to learning and accepting and to trying new things. And that permeates through not just my martial arts, but through everything that I do. I'm a strong believer that you should continue to learn, continue to grow, explore, and then try it and apply it in a scientific way. That's the other big difference with me versus some schools out there. We believe very strongly at our school that our martial arts needs to be rooted not only in history, but also in science and application, and it has to work. No matter how cool it looks on screen, if it doesn't actually work, what's the point?
Right.
So I guess my big philosophies are 1, keep learning, 2, preserve the history, and 3, make sure what you're doing works.
Nice.
Pressure test yourself.
I like that. All right. How about a worse martial arts related injury? Have you been lucky, or have you had any bad ones?
I have not had any really, really bad ones.
Okay.
Most of my issues came from that osteo that I had when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've had my knee totally replaced due to that bone disease.
Yeah.
I actually have an artificial left knee that's really altered my martial arts too. When you can't bend your knee past 94 degrees anymore, it changes your grappling.
Yeah.
You can't do some of the stuff you used to do. But my worst injury actually happened in my my third tournament I ever entered. I was grappling, and I had a guy in a guillotine, and I braced my hand against his shoulder to tighten the guillotine, and then he picked me up in a double leg and dropped me straight down on my arm, and his weight landed on my palm, and it hyperextended my wrist and tore every muscle in my forearm. And that was probably my worst one, but it wasn't too bad, actually. I was lucky I didn't break it. It was really funny, too, because I had just gotten out of my knee brace of 8 weeks, 3 days before the tournament. I actually took the brace off 3 days early to enter this tournament. Don't tell my doctor. He would have been pissed at me. But whatever. So I took it off, and I entered the tournament, and then there was the last division of the day, and I ripped every muscle in my forearm. And like every one of them. Dang. And so then, I'm taping it up. I got an ice pack on it, and I'm getting ready to go to the hospital. And my mom comes over to me, and she's like, "Why don't you go change real quick before we take you over to the hospital to get this checked out?" And I'm like, "Mom, you're nuts, but okay, I will go change, I guess." You're 16, you don't know any better. You just do what mom tells you to, right? Mm-hmm. Turns out the reason that I got sent off to change is Hanchi Usera was trying to finish tallying up scores and finish up checking the last couple of matches to finish because I won a grand championship that day. My first ever grand championship and my first sword, because I've always wanted to study sword. My parents told me, you can't have a sword unless you win it. Well, I won it and I ripped every muscle in my arm to win it, but I won it. And so I'm sitting here and there's a picture of me and he's like, yeah, just kind of put your arm behind my back as you accept this sword. I'm like, okay. So there's a picture floating around. You can't tell that I'm freaking all taped up and I'm in massive pain.
That's awesome.
But I still have a stupid grin on my face because I finally won the sword that I've been working for 2 years to get. And so it was pretty funny. That was probably my worst injury. I mean, I had that one. I've had a couple black eyes. I've had, torn ligament, standard stuff. I've been really blessed in my martial arts that I haven't had any major injuries, knock on wood. Yeah. But, I think a lot of that has to do with the way our school trains. Our school is very respectful, very controlled in everything we do. We go hard and we can fight with the best of them. We can hang with the best of them. I mean, Jesus, Al Horner is from our program. If you've never heard of him, Al Horner is a 5-time world champion in full contact fighting. He's a 5-time world champion in point fighting. He's won 4 world titles in forms divisions. He was coach of the USA karate team twice. This is one of the guys that taught me everything I know. So we can fight with the best of them, but we fight in such a controlled way that we rarely, we don't have a lot of injuries. Even in my school, I've been teaching for, coming up on over 20 years now I'm teaching. And I think we've had 1 torn ACL from somebody pushing too hard on a lock that he should have tapped out and he didn't. And we had 2 broken collarbones, and that's about it over the years. A couple of mild concussions, nothing major. And I really credit that a lot to our philosophy in our school of, control matters and taking care of each other matters and respect and not being afraid to tap out. Because in the end, I don't need to get injured for a $3 medal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I always tell my students is if you're losing the match and you think you could get hurt, tap out. Who cares? It's a competition. Don't tap out on the street. That's dumb. Yeah. But in the tournament, it's a freaking $3 medal. If you're that desperate for a medal, I'll give you one. It's no big deal. You don't need the injury. Yeah. Better to be able to fight the next day.
Agreed. So, all right. And I know we've talked a little bit about MMA throughout. Are you a fan? Do you enjoy watching MMA?
I don't really follow it.
Okay.
There's good and bad. I think what bothers me about the MMA world is there's 3 things that really bother me about it. I love the competition. I love the fighting. I love the skill you see coming out of those guys. But I don't like the contracts that the UFC puts those fighters in. They're making millions and millions of dollars off these guys who are living in poverty because the contracts are so one-sided. So that really bothers me. 2, I don't like how they go out of their way to hype up the people and the conflict and highlight the fighting side and the grudge match stuff. I don't remember his name. There's a guy out there that a lot of times when you see his weigh-ins and stuff, he's like bringing his opponent flowers or shaking hands with him or blowing bubbles. That's the kind of guy I like. George St. Pierre, I really enjoy watching him because he's always so respectful. Latoya Machida, always phenomenal, very respectful. Conor McGregor, I always had issues with because he has problems both in the ring and outside of the ring with respect. So, being a traditional martial artist, I don't have any problems with combat. I have problems when your combat is not done right. Yeah. So Matsumura talks about in his stuff, in one of his teachings, he talks about the 3 types of martial artists. There's the martial artist who is technically good and lacks control on anything he does, and he hurts people all the time, and that's a bad thing. There's the martial artist who is very good fighter, but has no control over his personal life and is always embroiled in scandal and does all these other things. And that's a terrible thing as well. Or there's a martial artist who lets the martial arts permeate their life and they take the lessons of control and the lessons of self-respect and mutual respect and balance, and they apply it not just in combat, but also outside of the ring. And I think the UFC, with its current ownership and publication, does us a disservice as martial artists because they are actively trying to recruit and hype up and pay the fighters that are actually in it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And trying to gain fame instead of trying to gain respect and skill. So I don't follow the UFC very heavily because of that. I don't have anything wrong with the guys who do it. I just, I caution traditional martial artists and even the non-traditionalists that you're only able to fight at that level for a few years. Don't risk everything on an off chance of making it into the UFC. Make sure you have another plan besides that. Make sure that you have a goal for your martial arts beyond winning in the cage.
Yeah.
If winning in the cage is one of your goals, great. Do everything you need to do it. But make sure you have a plan for afterwards too, or if it doesn't go that way. Because I've seen what happens to some of the guys who, that's their whole goal is to be the next big UFC fighter. And then when that fails, they don't have anything left. Or they get so focused on that goal of becoming the next big thing that they let their family ties and their personal life fall apart. So I believe as a martial artist, we need to find that balance. And I don't think the current UFC does a very good job of taking care of its fighters in that way.
I like it. No, that's good. All right. I got a few fun questions we used to wrap up the interview. So,
okay, fire away.
I know you said you don't really follow the UFC, but let's say you decided you were going to fight MMA. You were going to go to the UFC. What's your walk-up song going to be? What music's playing as you're taking that walk into the cage?
Oh my gosh. So I am one of those weird guys that digs into some really old, weird music.
Okay.
So I am a huge fan of the band Avantasia. It's not something that most people know. They're an odd little, they do, it's operatic metal is the best way to explain it.
Okay.
It's freaking cool. And they have one on there. My brain doesn't want to think of it right now. Wicked Symphony by Avantasia would probably be the one that I would use.
Okay, nice. All right, and you have the honor of being, as far as I remember, the first person I've ever asked this next question to who's actually from Rapid City. So who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
I would definitely, if I were to put people on there, I would definitely put, Matsumura would definitely be on there. The founder of most of the karate in the world. Kano probably deserves to be on there as the founder of judo. I would say, in this one, everybody would look at me like I'm crazy, but Tokugawa Ieyasu, the shogun of Japan. If it wasn't for him and his work with Oda Nobunaga and Hideyoshi, the Taiko, unifying Japan, martial arts in the world would not be what it is, because the 400 years of peace those three men ushered in, while it was very violent, was also what allowed Japanese martial arts and ultimately Asian martial arts to thrive the way they are. So he would probably deserve to be up there.
Nice.
And then, honestly, if I were to put anybody else up there, it's, Mount Rushmore's got 4 guys on it. So we've got Matsumura, we've got probably Kano, we've definitely got Tokugawa Ieyasu. The last one I would probably put on Mount Rushmore would probably be, that's a tough one. I don't know. It would either be Funakoshi, Ushiba, or probably, I can't think of his name, the founder of the Eshinryu Iaido school. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Yeah. Because most of the Japanese Kenjutsu schools in the world are based, they have Eshinryu as a major influence in them.
Nice.
So, yeah, one of those guys.
Hey, that's a great Mount Rushmore. That's a lot of names no one else has ever picked, so I like that. All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
My favorite martial arts book, I really love, it's a historical fiction by Eiji Yoshikawa. It's called Musashi. He wrote it was a 5-book series that then got condensed down into one book here a while back. And it's literally a fictionalized story of Miyamoto Musashi and his life and growth as a martial artist. There's some really cool life lessons in there. If you're going to sit down and read it, man, you got to set aside a long time for it. It's got, I think it's like, if I remember correctly, it's a little over 1,000 pages.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's a phenomenal, and it's an easy read, and you learn a lot about the Japanese mind by reading it.
Okay.
It's often referred to as the Gone with the Wind of Japan.
Okay.
So Eiji Yoshikawa, he wrote that, and he wrote Taiko, and those are probably my 2 favorite fictional ones. If we're going to talk nonfiction, I would have to say the Bubishi by far. I mean, it's the foundational book of karate.
Yeah.
And it's one of the oldest martial arts textbooks in the world.
Nice. I like it. All right, we'll see if you have an answer for this one. Favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I've got a couple of those.
Okay.
I actually love Killer Instinct.
Okay.
The N64 Killer Instinct. I played that one all through middle school with one of my friends, and I had a ton of fun with that one.
Okay. I think only one other person's mentioned that game, so that's cool.
Yeah, that or it was a Blizzard. It had a bunch of like dinosaurs and stuff. One of the characters is Chaos. I can't think of the name of it. But that one was always fun too. One of the old fighting games.
Nice. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
I was a big fan of Walker, Texas Ranger, but I actually really liked martial law even better with Sammo Hung.
Sammo Hung. Nice. Yeah. Yes. Only like 2 seasons, 3 seasons. It definitely was not long enough.
Yeah. I think it was 3 seasons, and then it kind of died about the time Walker, Texas Ranger died.
Yeah.
But it was on when I was like in high school, right in the middle of, I was just getting heavy into martial arts. And dude, I watched that one all the freaking time.
That's back when they used to actually show live TV on Saturday nights, because it was on Saturday night.
Right?
It was on right before The District with Craig T. Nelson. I watched them both.
Yeah, exactly. Back in the day, man.
Nice. All right. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
My favorite martial arts movie by far is Fearless with Jet Li.
Yes.
By far, one of the best martial arts epics ever. Jet Li has always kind of been a martial arts hero. If I ever get the chance to meet with or train with that man, I would be in like heaven. The dude is a philosopher. He is a martial artist. He is a wonderful cinematography guy. And Fearless is kind of like it's his last martial arts epic.
Mm-hmm.
He always said that would be his last one. And it tells the story of the growth that can occur through martial arts and how martial arts can really change you.
Yeah.
And it's just phenomenal. And really, he says he finished with that one because it's his story, but I actually look at it and go, it's kind of my story too.
That's cool.
So I love that film.
I love it. All right, final question. This one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've seen in your whole life, a favorite movie fight scene?
Favorite movie fight scene? Oh, man.
Anything goes. We've had people pick The Princess Bride, Rocky, Star Wars, Batman.
I'll tell you what, Princess Bride has the best realistic
sword
rapier fencing of any film out there.
Yep.
And, it's really cool about that film. All those guys that they're talking about, I'd use Fiore, or I'd use this guy. Those are real fencers.
Yeah.
And they wrote real manuals. So we actually study in our HEMA classes. It's freaking cool as heck.
That's awesome.
But that's a great one. Actually, there's a couple of really cool fight scenes in Unleashed, another Jet Li film.
Jet Li, yeah. Great movie.
The reason I like that film so much, and I couldn't pick out a favorite fight scene in it, I actually like the progression of films. He uses martial arts to tell the story of the changing character. So early in the film, if you watch him fight, the fighting style is animalistic and evil and just brutal.
Yeah, raw.
And it's just harsh.
Yeah.
And then as the character gets free of this caged mentality, this I'm trapped in this world of evil martial arts, and becomes a more free person who's finding himself and becoming more, his martial arts become more like that. And they become this open, relaxed, flowing, more Wing Chun, Tai Chi, Shaolin style instead of the animalistic monkey style, hard style stuff. And so it's really kind of cool. I like how that when this fight scenes in there kind of tell a story. I always think if you're going to do martial arts in film, you need to tell a story with your martial arts. You got to do more than just hit people. You got to use the martial arts can tell a story.
Yeah.
And so you might as well let it.
I like it. All right. Before I let you go, is there anything I forgot to ask you, or just any last minute stuff you want to get out there?
The only other thing I would say is I do want to take a minute to say a huge thank you to my martial arts influences. There's some people in my life that have helped me become who I am and to get the joy of teaching martial arts for a living. I never thought I would ever become a martial artist as a career. It was always just a side thing. But if it wasn't for Hanchi Usera, especially him first and foremost, pushing me to, one, become a teacher, and he helps me he calls me every week just to check in on me, make sure things are going well. Hanchi Alexander has been a huge influence on my understanding of the history of martial arts and the study of weapons and such. But then, I've got all sorts of friends within the martial arts community. Jurgen Sensei, Ben Benson, as I mentioned, Lee Brown, my black belts here at my dojo. I get to live my dream every day. And it's not because of anything I did special. It's because these gentlemen and ladies that I've come in contact with over the years have helped to form my dream into something pretty incredible, simply because they were kind enough to share their time, their knowledge, be patient with me. And so I just have to say a huge thank you to my instructors and my fellow martial artists, and especially to my wife for putting up with all my crap along this way, because she puts up with a lot. I mean, here we are, it's 7:00 at night. I'm usually home 2 hours ago, and she's like, you know what, go do this. Your martial arts is your job. And she's been very understanding over the last 20 years of all of this. So, I just want to say a big thank you to those who've let me live my dream more than anything. And people like you who continue to help spread this to the rest of the world and help us as martial artists build a community. It's humbling, and I'm truly grateful for all the amazing martial artists I've met in my life.
Nice. Well, definitely thank your wife for loaning you to me for the last 90 minutes. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
She's a blessed woman. So
nice.
She's awesome.
Nice.
So.
Well, seriously, this has been so much fun. I love your story, and I can't wait to get into editing it and getting it ready for July 9th. I think my listeners are really going to appreciate this one.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it too, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. And I didn't know a lot about your podcast until about a year ago, and I started listening to it. And I'll tell you what, Brian, what you're doing on your show was really cool, and it's really enjoyable. It's one of those things that I'll be cleaning the dojo and I'll turn your podcast on in the background and just listen to it. And nice. I really appreciate what you do. It's fun to hear from other martial artists and just have a good time with it. So thank you so much for having me on.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.